Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you've joined us. We're here for the Serviceberry book study with Carolyn Sharp as our host throughout these 3 sessions, and tonight's guest speaker, Sabrina Sawana. And I would like to now turn it over to my colleague, Cheryl McNamara, for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for that. So I invite everybody to firmly place your feet on the ground. I am a settler who lives in Kataranto, which means the place in the water where the trees are standing. A hint that this was once a vibrant watershed, most of which is now paved over. It is the ancestral home to several First Nations, including the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat, as well as the Anishinaabe, who include the Mississaugas of the Credit. I acknowledge that many First Nations, the Métis, and the Inuit now call this place home. It is governed by the dish with one spoon wampum belt, which Robin Wall Kimmerer writes about in the Serviceberry. It's a peace agreement between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It recognizes the diversity of Indigenous nations and cultures and entrusts everyone to take care of the land, sharing one spoon. As a settler, I feel inspired and responsible for this sacred agreement for peace and environmental stewardship. This place is home to several treaties between Indigenous peoples and the Crown, which I did not know about until a few years ago. The Mississaugas of the Credit and the Crown signed Treaty 13 in 1805 to clarify and confirm the terms of the Johnson-Butler Purchase. My McNamara ancestors settled on Treaty 3, or the Between the Lakes Purchase, in southern Ontario in the 1850s. They benefited from the affordable land in order to farm tobacco. I doubt that they understood the sacredness of this plant beyond understanding the colonizers' monetary value. My history education included stories of empty wild spaces that needed to be occupied, tamed, and civilized. I remember trees being referred to as timber and majestic local whales trapped in aquariums. I remember hushed whispers of Indigenous kids sent away and no questions asked, of stories about Indigenous peoples that only a colonizer would tell, share, and accept without question. I am questioning now. I am committed to the ongoing work of dismantling colonial-fed stories, calling them out as I hear them within myself and from others. I now see that these stories, which pit people against one another and other species, impoverish us all. I am committed to the lifelong work of listening to stories and perspectives told by Indigenous peoples and others who have been colonized, and to learn and work alongside them as we advocate for a peaceful and socially and ecologically just world. Shannon.
Thank you, Cheryl. And we all commit to that together. My name is Shannon Neufeld, and I am on staff with KAIROS. And it is my privilege as the chair of the Jubilee team to welcome you all here this evening for this book study that will draw together the work of Robin Wall Kimmerer with the themes of Jubilee. And Carolyn will get into that further in just a moment. But first, we want to invite our guest speaker, Sabrina Sawana, to come and offer the opening prayer.
Minogishaga, Gibachnozawan, Wakwam Kong Dunjaba, Megaze Dodam. Title that I recently claimed in my life is Songbird. So the form that my prayers are coming in these days is song. So I'm going to open with a song that Strongwater Singers sings. And I have some Strongwater Singers in the audience. So if you want to participate, you're more than welcome. But this song is called the Elements Honor Song. And when we sing it in Strongwater Singers, we sing it to honor all the elements of creation that are still fulfilling their original roles and responsibilities that they were given at the time of creation. So that's water, air, fire, earth. And one of the things that in my household that we've been doing recently is we're so thankful for the air, because can you imagine if air decided to take a day off today? We'd all be in a lot of trouble. So this is the Elements Honor Song. I forgot my drum, but I have a rattle, so here we go. Way high, way high, oh, 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 way, oh, way high, way high, oh, 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 way, oh, way high. So I just ask that everybody, first of all, thank you for attending, but also keep an open mind and an open heart as we navigate discussions tonight. And I'm thankful for the space that we all are able to share.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. That was beautiful. I was singing along, but I muted because I'm still learning the songs. And you know what? You're all better for it, because I know I was off a few times. So we didn't really introduce all of our staff that are here on hand. But I just want to take a quick second to thank them for being here and thanking them for their help. As you know, we've met Shannon. You've heard from Cheryl already as well. But we've got some other staff here who are just sort of hiding in the background. And you might see them in the chat or at some other point throughout the study. But I know Rachel and John and Beth and Shona are in here hiding somewhere. So if you see them, and just know that they're part of our crew. And I am going to share my screen with you shortly and just let you know what is going on with the agenda today. But first, I'd like to introduce myself, Gwe Deluisi Kalalin Sharp, Nin Elikamuj, sorry, I'm learning. Nin Elikamuj Kikaji Wasuak Ebit. So it's in Mi'kmaq. It says, hello, my name is Caroline Sharp, and my spirit name is Ever-Blooming Flower Woman. I am a Mi'kmaq settler woman, and I am from Newfoundland, but I am living here in Welland, Ontario, on the land between the Lakes Treaty that Cheryl had mentioned in her land acknowledgement. So I am going to share my screen with you now. It's a learning moment. It's a learning moment. That's one of the things, right? KAIROS. It's an opportune moment, and I'm apparently learning for all of you tonight. So
Welcome. You've met Sabrina. We're here to talk about the Serviceberry. And, sorry, I want the agenda. And it's not giving that to me. There we go. So, Upjalasi is a Mi'kmaq word, which means welcome. I'm glad you are here. Come in. It does mean all those things in one word. We did the land acknowledgement and prayer. Thanks to those who did that for us. And we did a little bit of introductions. And I'm going to talk about the Serviceberry and Jubilee. And then we're going to hand things over to Sabrina, and she's going to talk about Jubilee and Indigenous pedagogy. And then we're going to have a little bit of small group discussion with a word cloud activity at the end. And then Sabrina's going to close us in a good way before we all leave for the night. And so we'll just get right into the meat and potatoes of things. Why did I pick the Serviceberry for this? So before I start on this, I'd invite you to reflect. I think most of us have experienced, even some tonight, that sometimes we have a piece of technology that just stops working. Maybe it's your phone, your Wi-Fi router, or your computer. It freezes, it glitches, it stops responding. And what's the first thing that we do? Turn it off, we wait, and we turn it back on again. And somehow in this moment of pause, the system seems to find itself again. The clutter clears, the circuits realign, and everything starts working the way it was meant to. Now, humans are not machines, but we are energetic beings. Our hearts beat with electrical pulses, our brains fire with signals, and our very cells carry a subtle charge. And we are part of a larger living system, the earth, the atmosphere, our communities, our relationships. And all of this is interconnected and full of energy. So we may not always be conscious of it, but we feel it when we're off. Maybe it's the constant input from technology, the pressure to be productive, the grief of anxiety, of injustice, or the lingering disconnection from the land. But we become misaligned, not broken, but out of sync. And what we need is not a reset, but a recalibration. And this is what Jubilee is all about. So most of you probably understand what Jubilee is already, but we'll do just a quick run through. Jubilee is a year of rest where the land lays fallow. People ate reserves from previous crops, like from the year before, and they would eat what the land produces. It's a time of rest. It's a necessary time of rest built into a cycle of 7 years and 50 years. It's about debt forgiveness, restoration of equality, about restoring balance to the community. The social justice, having social justice prevents divide in the community. It's a time of renewal and a fresh start by being allowed to reclaim the land and livelihood without the burden of debt. And it's also community harmony through release of tensions and conflict over death and spiritual significance in practicing forgiveness and generosity, reflecting God's mercy and compassion. And we'll actually talk a little bit more about that in the last week of the study. Jubilee is also about the release of slaves. Modern slavery does still exist through human trafficking. As May 5th approaches, that's a day to observe missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Forced labor is still a thing, and in a historical context where the impacts of colonization continue to impact Indigenous people. Jubilee is also about land restoration, about stolen lands, and we will discuss that a little bit more next week. But Jubilee is also a proclamation of liberty, and you might see sometimes the blowing of the shofar, which is an announcement, which is important culturally because they announce important events, and it was a wake-up call to repentance and to contemplate the spiritual aspects of life. So now we get into Jubilee 2025. There was a Jubilee 2000 25 years ago, and we cleared a lot of debt from that. So Jubilee 2025 is a global ecumenical initiative that builds on the transformative success of Jubilee 2000, and that campaign managed to cancel $100 billion worth of debt for 36 low-income countries. And today, the Global South and Indigenous communities face a devastating debt crisis, with many nations spending more on debt repayment than on healthcare, education, or climate action. So the Canadian Jubilee campaign is being led by KAIROS Canada in collaboration with Citizens for Public Justice, Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, the Office of Religious Congregations for Integral Ecology, and the Canadian Council of Churches. And through that, debt cancellation and systemic financial reform are not just economic solutions. They're a moral imperative rooted in the theological principle of justice for all. So the 2025 campaign emphasizes ecological justice and the urgent need to address ecological debt, the exploitation of resources and lands in the Global South and in Indigenous communities worldwide, including in Canada. Amplifying Indigenous voices, the campaign also calls for land restitution, climate justice, and the transformation of exploitative systems to uphold dignity, equity, and sustainable development for all. So you'll hear a little bit more about this at the end, but we do have a petition that we're working on throughout the entire year. And this petition demands for debt cancellation for unjust and unsustainable debts, global financial reform to prevent future crises, and a debt resolution framework within the UN that is transparent, binding, and fair, and most importantly, sustainable. So we'll ask that you join us in the signing of this petition. And our goal is to collect 100,000 signatures in Canada and 10 million worldwide by the end of 2025. And given that this was one of our Pope Francis's final campaigns, final projects, and I believe it meant quite a bit to him. I think it makes this work even more important. I will say I don't follow the popes very closely, but I will say that Pope Francis was definitely one of my favorites, and just take a few seconds just to pay some respect. Okay. So I've talked about why I chose Jubilee. I talked about, or why I chose this book. I talked about Jubilee from the Bible. We've talked about Jubilee 2025. And now let's look at the points of connection from where these intersect with the book, The Serviceberry. So some of these concepts intersect on social or on justice, reciprocity, and the restoration of relationships deeply rooted in Indigenous cultural traditions and beliefs. So the Jubilee, our initiative highlights ecological justice and the need to address ecological debt, particularly in the Global South and Indigenous communities. It calls for debt cancellation, systemic financial reform, and the transformation of exploitative systems to uphold dignity, equity, and sustainable development. Indigenous traditions emphasize the importance of maintaining balance and harmony with ecosystems, advocating for the respectful use of resources and the restoration of natural relationships. The Serviceberry also explores the ethics of reciprocity and the gift economy, drawing from Indigenous wisdom and the natural world. Robin emphasizes the interconnectedness, gratitude, and importance of relationships, both among people and with the environment. Indigenous cultural beliefs often center on the idea that all beings are interconnected and that humans have a responsibility to care for the land and each other, fostering a sense of community and mutual support. These two sources converge on the idea that true wealth and flourishing come from the quality of our relationships, whether with each other or with the environment. or both. They both advocate for a shift from exploitation and hoarding to reciprocity, justice, and mutual care, reflecting the deep wisdom of Indigenous traditions that prioritize balance, respect, and the well-being of all members of the community. And then we also have reciprocity and community as a point of connection through both the Jubilee 2025 campaign and the Serviceberry, which both advocate for a shift towards reciprocity and community-based approaches, recognizing the importance of mutual support and shared responsibility. And through ecological justice, both emphasize the need for ecological justice, addressing the exploitation of resources and advocating for sustainable practices that honor the natural world and Indigenous communities. And then this also happens through Indigenous perspectives, where both draw on Indigenous wisdom to inform their approaches, highlighting the value of traditional knowledge in creating a more just and sustainable future. So in Mi'kmaq, we've got this word here, or a principle, really, Nedugulimk, which is the wisdom of living in balance and ensuring the well-being of future generations. It offers us concrete guidance in navigating the ecological and social challenges that we face. And it's not just an abstract concept, it's a way of being in the world. It asks us to consider the long-term consequences of our actions, to prioritize sustainability over immediate gain, and to recognize our interconnectedness with all creation. In the context of Jubilee, Nedugulimk reinforces the idea that true restoration involves not just addressing past harms, but also adopting ways of living that prevent future imbalances. Nedugulimk is about meeting one's needs without harming the land or depleting the gifts of creation so that future generations can also thrive. And just like Jubilee, it recognizes that we need moments of pause. We need moments of reflection, of restoration, to realign ourselves with these values. In a world that tells us to produce more, consume more, do more, these ancient teachings whisper something very different. Slow down, give thanks, live simply, make space for others, and remember that healing doesn't come from pushing harder, it comes from listening more deeply. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here as I wrap up. This study is an opportunity to listen to the land, to the ancient wisdom, to each other, and to the quiet voice within us that says there is another way. So as we begin this session, I invite you to think not just with your mind, but with your body, your spirit, and your relationships. What are you carrying that feels misaligned? What parts of your life, your community, your relationship with the earth are asking for recalibration? How might the Serviceberry, Jubilee, and Indigenous wisdom help guide the way? We don't need a reset, we need a return to right relationship, to the rhythm of gift, to the pulse of justice, to the sacred balance that sustains life. I was just talking about rhythm and pulse, and I'm about to hand this back to Sabrina, and she's just talking about that music, and so I'm just this a great connection here. So yeah, let's just join this journey together, and let's do this with open hearts and grounded feet, and a willingness to be changed by what we learn and share. I'd like to hand it back to Sabrina now. Thank you.
Miigwech, Carolyn, and very good job. And while I was listening to you, I was like, oh my God. It's like you were speaking right to my heart. So now it's my turn to hopefully share my screen. So in my introduction of myself, before I started singing, I said Gibach Noswin. This is the name that my spirit was gifted to walk this human journey. And what that name means in my language is the mischievous one. And I've definitely given myself an unnecessarily hard time trying to live up to that name. But now that I'm almost 50, I'd like to think I'm slowing down a little bit. But my English name is Sabrina Shawana. And I really believed all of my life that the reason why I was given the name Gibach when I came here, because you're gifted your name right at birth. And I really believe that I was named Gibach, the bad one, or the mischievous one, because I came into this world with only one arm. So all of my childhood, all of my teenagehood, most of my adult life, I really resented that name. Everybody in my family has a really beautiful name that relates to creation. Like, I have a sister, her name is Wasnodekwe, which means Northern Lights Woman. And I have a son, and his name is Musqua Mamingwans, and that means red butterfly. And everybody's name in my family connects to creation except for mine. Mine was Eboch. Um, my my traditional family, my dad is from Wacomakong, First Nation and Manitoulin Islander, and we belong to the Eagle clan. So those are those three pictures up the top, just explaining who I am. I am fortunate in my life to have created two families. I am the biological mother of three children. My oldest is 26, and my youngest is turning 16 in a couple of weeks. Um, I was also the only Indigenous kinship provider in the Niagara region, so a lot of children have come in and out of my house. And my oldest son, who is 39, calls me mom. And when we're out in public, people look at us weird because they're like, "Wait a minute, you're 47, he's 39." And the other family that I was able to create or help create is the Strongwater Singers. We are a group of what started off as a group of Indigenous moms who just needed a place to go once a week to um, gather our thoughts and pour back into our cups because we were wearing so many different hats. Um, this month we'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary. We're a 10-time award-winning collective who recently just signed to be artist ambassadors of the Downey Wenjack Fund. And we've grown so exponentially in our 10 years of existence that we actually have a branch of our Strongwater tree called Strongwater Juniors. These are all young ladies under the age of 25 who are learning their culture and their traditions alongside the older generation of Indigenous aunties in their circle. Okay, next slide, please, Caroline. So I was so excited. I didn't realize when I was asked to do this that April 22nd was Earth Day. And the reason, I'll explain that a little bit later, but this picture is from an artist from my home reserve, James Mishabininjima. And a lot of his series is painting life into landscapes. So I thought this visual would be very instrumental in understanding kind of the worldview that I'm coming from or the lens that I'm coming from, because this is so close in my family. This is really how I see the earth. And the work that we've been doing in Strongwater Singers, we now understand that Mother Earth is like the ultimate single mother. Everybody walks all over her all day long. They don't see her, recognize her, take her for granted. And I used to say this to my children all the time: I'll give you 110% of myself, and all I need back from you is 5% to keep going. And man, that 5% was so hard to get. And as a woman, as a mother, it's a lot. And so yeah, we see the earth as the ultimate single mother now, and we understand her, and we, for the past maybe 5 years, dedicate our home fire. So our home fire is like our practice that we have every Wednesday night. We dedicate the songs in our home fire to creation. And this understanding that we carry now is that these songs that we sing every week to honor creation and so many different pieces of it, the earth is taking that as like the thank you or the gratitude that we're expressing to it. And in return, because everything is reciprocity, we get blessed with so many blessings. And I can't even tell you how many times I've just cried tears of joy for things that have happened in our circle. Our circle is, I say at the beginning, like Vegas, what goes on here stays here. It's nobody's business. So I don't really want to talk too much about stuff that has happened in this circle. But for 10 years, I've been trying to find the perfect word to describe it. There's no English word that I found yet that can describe it, but it would be like magic and love and beauty and protection and sacredness and safety. It would be like so many things wrapped up into one. And I think the reason why I don't know that word is because of the effects that residential school has played in my family line. I'm the first generation in my family to not attend residential schools, and I'm 46 years old. My father was an Indian day school survivor. My grandfather was a residential school survivor. And the loss of like culture, language, and traditions in my family line prevents me from speaking my language at the moment fully, which is crazy when you know that my dad is a Indigenous language instructor and he can speak fluently with my children. It just, with my generation of siblings, it's just, we can't get it. So next slide, please. I picked this quote because this is kind of going to be the theme of my talk today, and it really hit me in the Serviceberry book. First, I just want to say that this book was given to me by one of my adopted sons, Cheyenne, before he left for university, and he gave this to me as a book that we could read together while he was gone away. And I was so excited when I was asked to do this because the book is so meaningful to me. So the first quote that kind of jumped out at me was, instead of changing the land to suit their convenience, they changed themselves. And next slide, please. Oh. So if the sun is the source of flow in the economy of nature, what is the sun of a human gift economy? The source that constantly replenishes the flow of gifts. Maybe it is love. So on December 21st, the winter solstice, for the first time in my whole entire life, I decided to go into hibernation. I went into ceremony with myself because I had a really tough year. And when the winter came along, I was really scared for my well-being, and I was broken in a way that I was unfamiliar with. And I was scared for my mental health, if I was going to make it. And I thought the only way that I can even try to figure out how to survive is to go into ceremony with myself. So I checked into a hotel in Niagara Falls that I once used to live at, and I bought one of those big calendars from the dollar store, and I taped them all up around the hotel room, and I just planned my life. And I said, I'm tired of things happening to me and me getting swept up in it. I want to plant my feet firmly on the ground and figure out how to be the best human I can be. And the only way that I could do that in my mind was to go into ceremony with myself. So on the winter solstice, I was in the hotel room, and it was really empowering because I forgot that once upon a time I used to live in that hotel for a brief moment in my life. And it was really humbling to be there because I don't take the moments to stop and recognize how far I've come from where I've been. So yesterday was my first day out of hibernation. And during hibernation, what I did was I figured out how to take all the stuff that happened to me and let it sit and figure out how to turn it. If I am of creation, like, there's soil within me, and I need to figure out how to let that stuff sit inside of me so that I can grow and bloom to my full potential on April 22nd, which was so exciting because this is actually my first time I've spoken to anybody in more than 4 months. And I kept saying in hibernation that I took a break from social media. I stopped talking to a lot of people, and I just needed to be with myself and be with creation. And I kept saying, I don't know what I'm going to do on April 22nd, but it's going to be something big. I know it. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get out of hibernation, but I'm so excited to see how I bloom. So I wanted to give you some examples of like what I did in that time to be with myself, to understand myself as human. Next slide, please. So it's not just fruits that are understood as gifts, rather all of the sustenance that the land provides. So this beach is actually 3 blocks from my house in Fort Erie. And for some reason, this is the place where I'm most connected to Creator. I cannot tell you how many hours I've spent on this bench. And every time I go there, and I went there almost every day during my hibernation period, I'm talking to Creator and creation like they're my family. I say hi to the trees. I greet the water. I greet the sand. I thank the air. I sing to Creator. I had a really powerful night one night there with the grandmother moon. It was a full moon. and it was winter time, and I was the only one on the beach, and I had my drum, and I was doing a little ceremony, and it felt like Grandmother Moon was shining just on me. Like I was the only person in the whole universe. And in that moment, I felt so much love. I walked away from that beach like I was the most powerful human being on the entire planet. And I'm so thankful for that gift and that moment that I could have with the moon, and the moment that I can have with the water, and the moment I can have with the trees, because it took me a long time to realize and understand and accept that I'm also a sacred part of creation. In our Anishinaabe creation story, it talks about how everything was created and the last thing to be made was human, and our only purpose here is to enjoy creation. So I feel like in this hibernation time, I kind of took it back to basics. I wanted to learn how I'm a sacred part of creation. Another big part of what I did to help myself during this time and reconnect with the earth and all of creation was my birthday last year. One of my good friends brought me a trampoline. And Caroline, next line. My my kids really want to jump on it, but it actually serves a purpose. Just like my ex-husband wouldn't let me get cats, but I said it's not a pet, it's a kitchen appliance. It's a mouse catcher 3000. um, So she brought me a trampoline, and I use it as a think tank in my backyard. And the kids want to jump on it all the time. And I'm like, no, that's mommy's think tank. And this is where I go to think my deep thoughts. And I had a really beautiful moment with creation last week. I woke up before the sun, and my plan was to do a sunrise ceremony. And I was outside in my think tank, and I just was listening to all the birds sing their songs. And the birds, I don't know if you've ever been outside right when the sun is about to come up, but the birds, all of them, everywhere, sing their songs. There's hundreds of them, just chirping away. And it's so beautiful. And the same night, I went out into the think tank so that I could just lay there in creation and watch the sun go down. And the same thing happened. All the birds were chirping, hundreds of them at the same time. And I don't know if you see this picture on the right. Me and this bird were singing to each other for about 45 minutes. And I've never in my life, up until this point, taken the time to like sit with creation, honor creation, and understand creation. Okay, what is creation doing? How are these birds moving? What happens to the clouds? How come I'm not appreciating every gift that has been given to me in this moment? Like these two pictures represent some of my most powerful moments where I feel the most gratitude and appreciation, because I realize that one, when I'm out there, I feel like the most beautiful, powerful person that ever existed on the face of this earth, because it feels like it's just me and God, or me and Creator out there. And I'm being able to process my thoughts, I'm being able to sing my songs, I'm being able to think all the things that I need to think, and feel all the things that I need to feel. That's also another important part of being human, is allowing yourself to feel the whole spectrum of feelings. That's part of humanity. So the happy days are great, and the sad days I used to hate, but I understand and appreciate them as lessons. Like today, everything that could go wrong went wrong for me. I forgot my drum, I forgot my charger, I did so many things, and then I just took a deep breath and I was like, but I'm loved and I'm protected and everything's going to be okay. So next slide, please, Caroline. So they invite us all into the circle to give our human gifts in return for all we are given. How will we answer? I can only offer these pieces of my journey as not as a roadmap of how you're going to connect with creation and creator, but I hope to at least light a spark within you by hearing my story and realizing that for the first time in 46 years of my life, I feel beautiful and I feel loved and I feel wanted, because I developed this relationship with the earth and living in gratitude and reciprocity. Like my single mother journey, I would never ask for a lot, but I do need a thank you every now and then. I do need a good job, mom. I do need a hey, thanks for being there for me. And it's not enough to think those things. I think that it would be a more powerful statement if we went outside and just put our feet on the earth and said thank you, like out loud. Who's going to judge you? So I think this is the end of my slides. Oh, yes. Thank you. Miigwech. Oh my God, Caroline, where'd you go? Oh, oh.
Am I back?
Where is she?
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I think it's so nice to hear those stories about how we connect personally. I know for years and years, I mean, because I do have that mixed background as well. For years before I even knew I was Indigenous, I heard about um, Celtic thin spots where, these are spaces in nature where the realm between heaven and earth are thinner and we are more close with God. And I'll just share a very, very brief story here, just because we're doing really good for time. But before I worked for KAIROS, once upon a time, I was a farmer. And when I was farming, we had ducks, and because we rented our land instead of actually owning it, we couldn't keep our ducks in the winter, and so sadly we had to cull them. And so for me, I mean, my biggest aha moment, I think, similar to your hibernation, was that loss of life for me. Holding that poor little animal in my hand, and when its life leaves, it's like that all the weight from the world just and it just teaches you such a tremendous respect and tremendous gratitude that life is being given for you. And we have that relationship with each other, all of us. I mean, just even going back to the Bible, I mean, the one thing that Jesus wanted everybody to do is love. Love,
Yeah.
no strings attached, just love. And, that's love each other, love the trees, love the water, love the bears, love the dogs. I really love the dogs. Um, but, thank you, because I think, your story, you're actually living this. You're living this creation and you're growing through it and you're modeling this for all the other people around you. And I think that that's an incredibly wonderful thing to do. And we don't model enough.
Miigwech. Well, yeah. So one of the things was I forgot to mention, but I returned to post-secondary studies when I was 32 years old. I left a very lucrative chambermaiding career to attend Brock University, and I got approved to go into their Gideyama Aboriginal Women's Certificate program. That's where I got all the teachings and the knowledge. And then from there, I did so good in that program that Brock offered me a scholarship to get my bachelor's of education. So I got my bachelor's of education. And the first thing I wanted to go for my master's, but university is like a lot of theoretical work. And I wanted to see how that knowledge that I just got plays out in community. And that's how Strongwater Singers was born from that time. But I think I'm going to do this every year for myself. Because one of the big questions that I asked myself was like, what would happen to me if I poured all that love and care and attention I gave to other people into myself just for a little bit of time? I wonder how much I would change, right? But when you're a woman that comes from domestic violence and has a lot of sad stories like I do, it's not easy to see or accept love and care. And one of the most powerful moves I ever made for myself was to allow myself to be loved by myself, for myself, to myself. And a lot of that came with realizing that I'm a sacred part of creation. I'm loved. Creator made me too, man. Just as beautiful as that tree is, just as beautiful as those flowers are. Hey, look at me.
You're not
So
wrong. You're not wrong. Yes, we are all that beautiful part of creation. I've heard it several times where, God made everybody unique and, felt that, he needed to make one of you too. So
Right. I'm
we're
the
all meant.
perfect Sabrina, Shawana that
There
ever
you
lived.
go. There you
If
go.
there's another Sabrina Shawana, I go toe to toe with her, but I think I'm the best one because I'm the
No
only
one,
one.
no
It's
one
like,
can do you better than you, right?
yeah.
All right. We are now going to move into a slightly more interactive activity. I have a couple of questions for everybody. I'm just going to pop them into the chat here right now so you can have a quick look at them before you get thrown into a room. And I need to send this to everybody here, not the waiting room because there's nobody in there. There you go. There's your 3 questions. So you'll have about 15 minutes or so once you get thrown into a small chat room, and there'll be around 6 of you in each room, hopefully, or maybe less. And we'll give you some time to answer those questions, and then pick somebody from your group so that way when we do come back, maybe we can ask a few groups what their chats look like. Any questions?
Are we all set? Okay.
Sorry, I had to restart that. I'm just going to take one more just because I do want to respect everybody's time, but I can stay back a few minutes if anybody wants to share after our 8:30 mark. Ellen, Ellen, I'll take you, and then I apologize to everybody else that's got their hand up or wants to share.
Okay. Yes, Eden. So we did have actually, unfortunately, we had a few people who got in late because they didn't realize that their message had said 8 o'clock rather than 7. So they kind of came in medias res and hadn't heard Sabrina, which was too bad. Some of the things that people appreciated was the idea of the earth as the mother, and Sabrina had spoken of the earth as the quintessential single mother, but Robin Wall Kimmerer also speaks of the sort of the primal giving of the energies and the sustenance of the earth as a mother as well. And so that resonated with people. I shared a story from my own experience, which kind of was triggered by some of the stories that the author had told in the book about, somebody picks some berries and then makes a pie, and then the person with whom they share the pie then goes on to do something else. And there was a situation in my own life several years ago where a friend of mine here in Toronto had cherry trees in her backyard of the house that she was living in and would invite me to come pick the cherries. And we had picked so many cherries, then I'd put on social media, I have so many cherries if anybody wants pie or jam. And one of my friends back in Manitoba, being a smartass, said, "Well, I will take a pie, please." And I was like, "Yeah, that's very, very nice." And as it turned out, another friend of mine was traveling from Manitoba to Toronto the following week and offered to pick up the pie. And so I had only met her in conference calls. I'd never actually met her in person before. And so we managed to arrange that I would pick her up at the airport, give her the pie. So that forged our friendship. Then she brought it back with her to Winnipeg, where my friend's wife went and met her at the airport and picked up the pie. And this became this great story, first of all, but also forged all these friendships. And that was no accident, I don't think. And I said to the group that the cherries that constituted the pie were freely given from the backyard in the first place. So it was all a gift continuing to move.
Wonderful. You have your
And
own
what,
version of Serviceberry. That's wonderful. Wonderful. As I mentioned, we're going to make a word cloud. And so in just a second, you're going to see a little poll pop up on your screen, and it's going to ask you a question, and you're going to think of one word for this to answer this question. There you go. Describe how the Serviceberry made you feel after or during reading it. And if you haven't read it yet, that is okay. Just give us a word for what you feel it might represent. All
So
right.
what do? You put will it go on social media or
Yeah,
if,
so the
what if you
words,
don't-
all the words are going to get compiled together into like an art, a piece of art, and we will share it on our social media pages and share with others how much fun we've had this evening with each other, and just the wonderful conversations, wonderful and meaningful conversations that I think that we're really doing some important work here together, and sharing the wonderful advice and knowledge that the Serviceberry has to share with us.
And folks, I think I'm going to end this poll. We've stopped getting more responses.
Okay, yeah, we're going to
So-
end the poll, and just because we are getting really close to our 8:30 mark, I just want to respect everybody's time. Again, I can stick around a few minutes after if you want to chat, but we have invited Sabrina to close us in a good way, just as she has opened us in a good way. She will send us all off in a good way. And then we will meet again next week. And next week, Brianna Brown will be our speaker. And Brianna Brown was part of the Land Back movement and has some wonderful stories to share with us as well. So Sabrina, are you here?
I am here.
All righty, go for it.
Okay. So Chumigwech everyone for coming together this evening and letting me speak and for listening and all the wonderful comments that you've been putting in the chat. This song is the traveling song and we sing it to wish everybody safe travels. And Strongwater Singers, we say until we can see you again next week, be good to each other and be good for each other. So the song goes, Bama Piko Amen. Bama Piko Amen. Bama Piko Amen. Bama Piko Amen. We-ah-eh-ah-eh-oh. 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 Miigwech, everybody, thank you so much. Be good to each other and be good for each other until we can see each other next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sabrina.